their parents.
The children say that white collectors have been coming up into the valley, an hour's drive from the main road along a dirt track, to get to the Cycads, and they admit they've been helping to dig them out.
But even the parents ask the children to dig for the huts.
So the parents ask them to dig,
Yes.
and then they get the money for them.
A few hundred yards away is the centuries-old population of Cycads that Cynthia Giddy has been trying to protect.
To walk in a valley like this and to look at these plants makes one realize one's link with prehistory. I can well imagine what this looked like 100 million years ago when there were dinosaurs roaming amidst these plants, because this was the dominant plant group of what is now known as the age of dinosaurs. This ravine would have been filled with trees 100 years ago, but we've removed the trees, we've used them as firewood, we've used them as building materials. And yet the Cycads have survived, and they are almost the dominant feature in this landscape today. And that alone, for me, is a triumph.
Cycads have inedible leaves and fibrous stems, so they were no use for feeding livestock or building shelters and were left alone. Until, that is, the white population went Cycad collecting crazy. It's a craze that's turned into a lasting obsession.
I've been employed by the Natal Parks Board since 1972, and as long as that, I have seen this trade going on. But it seems to be escalating. As the plants become rarer, so the prices go up, and so the modus operandi employed by some of these operators, so it becomes more professional, harder for us to deal with.
In the so-called independent homelands, roadside hawkers try to cater for the whites' mania by illegally selling plants that are little more than seedlings.
You'll find that they're not openly offered for sale, but wherever there are other things offered for sale, like firewood, basket work, woodwork, if you make an inquiry about cycads, the cycads are just hidden out of sight in the long grass.
Cynthia Giddy can liberate this bunch for just a few rand.
I have a tremendous amount of sympathy for them. In a third world situation, with the prevailing poverty and the unemployment, these people are desperate for economic survival, and the Western ideals of conservation make very little impact on them. Okay?
Thank you.
The craze has become so serious that the authorities have even started to take plants into custody for their own protection. Over 5,000 cycads have been moved to this forest reserve from unprotected land. A hideaway in the trees isn't the ideal safe house, but the wardens reckoned this was the only way to save them. They're also trying another ploy, destroying the cycad trade by flooding the market with cultivated plants. Cynthia Giddy is producing thousands at her nursery.
As soon as the male cones are mature and start shedding pollen, we will then keep a check on them, and with a digital probe thermometer to establish exactly when they are ready to start shedding pollen, because the temperature goes up. Those cones are then cut. The pollen is taken for use for other people, and also should we need it in another year when that male does not cone again. If there is a female in this garden, we will then hand pollinate by taking the pollen, putting it into a syringe, and then introducing it into the female cone. The next stage is waiting for that female cone to mature, and this is a very human-like thing. It takes almost 9 months from pollination before that cone is mature. We have a special germinating house where we are able to control the temperature. They are planted on heated beds so that the soil temperature is kept constant at 28 degrees, and we can also control the humidity.
Experts like Cynthia Giddy are constantly improving the techniques for propagating rare plants to help spike the market. Back in California, Ray Rand is also equipping a propagation room for the delicate, painstaking work of growing orchids. He's doing it reluctantly, but to comply with the CITES legislation, he can no longer get plants from the wild.
It's depressing, because I know that I will never see a new species, a new flower the rest of my life. I will never be able to bring in a plant and cherish it and love it, and I do this. I have my own collection here, a lot of stuff I don't sell. I don't get to do anything anymore except now sell plants. And that's not the fun. The fun was bringing in things and looking at the beauty of them, the incredible new things. The excitement was like a Christmas present over and over and over again.
Ray Rand's obvious passion for wild plants isn't so different from that of the collectors who established many of the world's famous botanical gardens. At the turn of the century, slipper orchids were being shipped out of Asia by the ton. Kew's palm house was stocked with rare and exotic plants from all over the world to satisfy the curiosity of the public. Nowadays, though, the emphasis is much more on research. Each year, scientists at Kew test plants to see if they can produce new drugs